He doesn't read. He's not curious. You know, he's just kind of a village idiot type. According to Wolf's book, and many of this has been pushed back on, by the way, former Deputy Chief of Staff Katie Walsh thought the White House was incompetently run. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and former Chief of Staff Reince Priebus believe Trump to be an idiot. Gary Cohn, the president's top economic advisor, regards Trump as, quote, dumb. And the president's top national security advisor, H.R. McMaster, considers him, according to this book, to be, quote, a dope. Well, of course, all of this thrilled the lefty-cabled nitwits and bitter never-Trumpers.
Some of the more salacious entries, the fact that Donald Trump doesn't read. Well, you know, we told you that a year and a half ago.
The assessments all consistent of the closest people to the president working with him as being essentially a child.
He's a child. He's got no attention span. He reads nothing.
It's even worse than it seems. This is an idiot surrounded by clowns.
The behavior, the disposition of the president, they say he's acting like a child.
The horrible choice you have to make is, do I stay here and work with this child who behaves like an arrogant fool, behaves like a baby?
Pot, kettle, black, Joe. Well, of course, they're all enjoying this moment where Team Trump seems to be piling on the president because they all think it validates their own views that Donald Trump is just a troglodyte who lucked out by winning the presidency, and by the way, he eats a lot of bad food. Okay, I'm going to hand it to them. I think they're right about this. Trump isn't into artisanal cheeses, he doesn't munch on kale and down coconut water, but most of the rest of the stuff is just goofy. First, do these perpetual grousers realize that when you call him an imbecile, you are in effect saying the same of his supporters? I mean, I'm not a political soothsayer, but I don't think that's a great political strategy for expanding your own movement. And by the way, I still remember what the intellectuals of the late 1970s and the 80s frequently said about my old boss, Ronald Reagan. Remember, he was unintelligent, he slept in the afternoons, he went to a second-rate college, just an actor. Shallow. Well, look, Trump isn't Reagan. No one ever will be. Reagan was a man for his own time. He was a former two-term governor of California who wrote and thought a lot about conservatism. But, like Reagan, Trump is extremely sharp, and he has the pulse of the people. And I know, because I've seen he has an uncanny ability to connect with their hopes and their desires. And like Reagan, he reminds Americans that what makes us special is our people. It's our freedom. It's not our government. And as for the so-called smart, educated people who are now criticizing Trump, I have a few questions. Was it smart to enact policies that ended up enriching the repressive regime in China at the expense of American workers, American companies, and American security? And was it smart to leave our borders open, like Swiss cheese, allowing illegals to stream into the United States, taking American jobs, saddling taxpayers with the cost of educating them, housing them, providing them with health care? Was it smart to get into some wars that ended up draining our country of trillions of dollars, took the lives of so many of our finest men and women? Was it smart to explode our foreign population, not through a smart merit-based immigration system, but through the ludicrous policy of chain migration? Was it smart to borrow trillions from other countries, only to send hundreds of billions to countries who hate us? Is it smart to create a government-mandated healthcare system that drove so many doctors out of their practices, jacked up premiums and out-of-pocket costs, and led to canceled policies? I don't think so. Trump friend and political operative Roger Stone put it this way on my radio show today.
Donald Trump is his own chief strategist. He's also his own speechwriter, his own phrase maker, his own press secretary in many senses. And he's obviously very good at it. Yes, Donald Trump is an eccentric. Yes, he does things his way. Yes, he is not like every other president that you can think of who was packaged, who was fabricated, who was being handed, polling and focus groups and discussions of how to say things that would make you popular against enormous odds by taking on the two-party duopoly and the elites of both parties who have, let's face it, run the country into the ground. He's a genius.
So maybe Donald Trump doesn't pore over Robert Caro's latest doorstop-sized biography or have dog-eared copies of Plato's Republic on his bedside table. Big deal. He had great schooling, but he never pretended